links, strong dietary factors.
It seems that food is somehow involved with the top 2 to 3, killers that we know of, diseases. How's that differ, or is that similar to your work?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it starts with the digestion in the food, and
what about digestion? Because that's a specific focus in Ayurveda. Tell us about that a little bit.
It's very interesting because, although food is, the most important factor, and in fact, I think I had sent you that quote, there's an ancient proverb, and this is thousands of years old, that when the diet is wrong, then medicine is of no use. And when diet is correct, then medicine is of no need. So there is this philosophy that, you have to eat properly. However, and we see this quite a bit, there are a lot of people who are eating what's considered the right foods. And in Ayurveda, we all have different mind-body types. So I think that's where people struggle a bit, and where
no one size fits all.
Exactly, yeah. And you really have to look at everyone as an individual. The food, should be organic and non-GMO and from nature and all of those things. And then how you prepare it is very important as to how you're going to digest it.
Whether it's raw or cooked?
Raw or cooked. And also there's this principle of the 6 tastes in Ayurveda where, in Western medicine, it's very reductionist. We look at this one food and we say, oh, that's carbohydrate, that's bad. But if you eat it with the micronutrients that you need and spices, and they don't have to be like hot spices, but just savory spices, that's what helps you digest that food. So there's this concept of how you're going to digest the food. Are you optimizing your digestion? And a lot of the foods are all about, now we know with science, which has been really fun to do the science, that a lot of these healthy foods are shifting the microbiome, and they do most of the digesting for us. But in Ayurveda, again, it's the 6 tastes. So we focus on macronutrients, which is what we learned in medical school: carbohydrates, fats, proteins, how much do you need of that? Those are the energy foods, and they're important, but that's one taste in Ayurveda. And the other 5 are all about the micronutrients and what you're putting in your food to support your own digestive process, so that you don't have to take other things to help you digest your food. You're optimizing your internal mechanisms for healing. And so when you combine a little bit of sour and a little bit of salt and the pungent and then the bitter and astringent, those are all the micronutrients, then your body will heal itself.
This is all to improve digestion.
It helps you to improve the digestion so that you can extract the nutrients from the food. And also there's this concept of synergy even in food science now, where when 1 + 1 doesn't just equal 2, 1 + 1 can equal 10 if you're combining foods in the right way. There's this concept of food synergy. So I think that's what these, and a lot of other traditional healing systems recognize when a lot of ethnic cooking naturally has a lot of these flavors all mixed together. And that's what my mom did. She just knew what to put in the foods. She didn't necessarily know it as a scientist, but she was a food scientist, right, in the kitchen. And so any food you made, you knew what to put in it. And then in my analytical mind now, I look at all these recipes and I'm like, oh yeah, it's got all the 6 tastes for it. Yeah, and it's interesting too that each of those tastes has a very specific purpose of what it's doing in your body to help you digest. Because again, otherwise you can eat healthy food and still not digest it, absorb it, use the micronutrients the way they're meant to be used. And so it can be very complicated. It's a very sophisticated sort of science, but honestly, it's the easiest way I ever found to figure out how to eat. And so, and it's fun, when I taught my kids, these are all the 6 tastes, and then we would look at our food and say, did we miss one of the tastes? And sometimes you just have to add one little thing, and it makes it a complete meal. So, and that's again optimizing your internal healing, because Ayurveda is all about using what your body already knows what to do, but things have just gotten in the way of it. Maybe you're not giving your body what it needs to do the healing process. And again, food is key in that process, but also optimizing the internal mechanisms that we have for healing.
So Gordon and I talked a minute before the show. I brought a couple of kale salads, and I forgot that he had told me that it would be best to cook some of the kale. I could have one raw kale salad and one partially cooked kale salad, because a lot of people can't digest raw kale. I mean, I'm a big kale fan. I know no one likes to admit that. But then you had a very specific answer as to why it is. And so I was thinking about, as you were talking, that people think, I can't eat that good ingredient, but it might be they can't eat it raw or they can't eat it cooked. Tell us a little bit about that, because you were just talking about that earlier.
This really gets to what Sheila was talking about, what Dr. Patel was talking about. about the digestion, there's a concept in Chinese medicine referred to as the digestive fire, and they call it Agni in Ayurvedic medicine. And it really is talking about the ability of the body to extract the good things from food, the nutritional components, the healing properties, and to expel the waste product, and to do that smoothly and easily. And when we get sick, that ability starts to weaken, and we end up not fully nourished and not able to easily eliminate and holding on to toxin and waste. And so the most foundational thing you can do is to strengthen the Agni. It's to build up the digestive fire. And sometimes when people's digestion is very weak, you have to cook your food in a vessel outside of the body. You put the digestive fire into it, in essence, pre-digesting it a little bit, so that then your weakened power of digestion can be aided by your cooking method.
That's also true of fermenting and sprouting as well. Those are sort of pre-digested foods, are easier for the body to assimilate, right?
Correct.
Yeah, a little bit of breaking the food down, before you ingest it can help then the body so it doesn't have to do as much. And then as that Agni that gets stronger, then you may find you can, eat things that you couldn't eat when it was not so strong. Although there are some people, again, in Ayurveda that just naturally don't digest raw foods very well. And, there are these kind of different mind-body types. And that might not be so good for them if they try to do that. So it's very interesting. And
I thought you raised something very interesting earlier, Anita, when you were talking about